You're live. You're live. You're live. Yay. Now, this perfect. That's playing in the background. Put it. Alright. Once again, how's everybody doing? Everybody's doing fine. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I really do. If you were spending with your family, I hope you got some good quality time with your family. And if you were doing a Friendsgiving, I hope you had a good Friendsgiving and you had a lot of fun with your friends during this time. It's all good. And yeah, I've been out for a bit. I think you forgot to press the start live on YouTube. I just did. Let me check. It says that I'm live on YouTube. Yeah. Are you not able to see me there? Is it just like delayed? It seems like I am live on YouTube. I'm live on both the short, like the vertical version, and the horizontal version. So I should be good. Should be good. All right. So with that said, yeah, I've been out for a bit. So this recap has a good amount of information. I don't know. It probably will take me the similar amount that as usual to do the recap. But there is just slightly more information to cover, considering I'm covering 2 weeks worth of news. So I'll look forward to that. But I'll try to keep it concise and short and try not to ramble too much. Regardless, go ahead. Let me get ready to just put record. All right. Regardless, we can go ahead and talk about news. So, while I hope that you all had a great Thanksgiving and that you really enjoyed time with your family or with your friends if you're doing Friendsgiving. But while you were taking a rest and taking it nice with your family, the reality is that the gaming industry didn't really stop. In fact, it only got more heated as key figures in the gaming industry are starting to make their moves, and also it's more apparent than ever that there is a war that might be coming to an end within the gaming industry between AAAs and indie games. So let's figure out what has happened during these last 2 weeks that we've been taking it easy. Well, we can first go ahead and start talking about the first news that I want to cover today is regarding Netflix. So if you remember, a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Netflix was starting to jump into the gaming scene, and they've been doing this for a while now, but they've been slowly jumping into the gaming scene, and they recently pulled out their, the social games that they were, doing. What part of their transition into gaming is that they bought a couple of gaming companies that they wanted them to make new games under their umbrella, completely new IPs and stuff like that they could work on, and they would fund it. And the thing is that recently there was a shift within Netflix. As you can see, Netflix recently went and sold the game studio Spryfox. Now, Spryfox was sold back to its founder, so it's all good. It's not like they lost their jobs. It's not like the studio closed down or anything like that. Luckily, they just sold back their rights to their studio back to the original 2 co-founders of Spryfox. And if you don't know what Spryfox is the company that made Cozy Grove. So it's a pretty cute game, and it's a pretty nice indie game that has a pretty good reputation for itself. So it's a pretty good name working on this project. And what project were they working on? Well, they were working on Spirit Crossing, which is a very similar vibe to, from what I see, to Cozy Grove. But the whole point was that it was going to be like a massive multiplayer game that multiple people could join, and like they would have their own communities, they would have their own things. So it would be like a cozy multiplayer game, a very ambitious game they were working on. And it hasn't been canceled. Thanks to them receiving the rights to their studio again, they just continue working on this game on their own. So who knows? Maybe we might see this game either sometime next year or sometime the year after that. But it's a very interesting and ambitious project that they're working on. And I personally really love their art style and like their art direction. So I'm looking forward to hearing more news about this in the future. That being said, why is this shift happening, right? Why, if they're going into games, why is it that they sold off a studio, right? Are they shifting back immediately after what we saw last week or a couple weeks ago with their new like Lego and all those social games? Well, not really. So the previous CEO was focusing a lot on new IPs and creating just new stuff in Netflix, and especially like regarding games, which is why they hired this whole company. But what the new CEO that came in on 2024, Haskan, has been focusing more and wants to leverage more existing IPs. So since Netflix has a lot of IPs already under its umbrella, with a lot of series that they've funded and made by themselves, a lot of movies they've made themselves, and a couple games that they've been working on, they want to leverage off those existing IPs and start making games on those IPs. And this is perfect for their social gaming agenda. So one thing that they stated was that the social games that they added into Netflix were actually being very successful. As I can see here, they said that their streaming services found that the social games performed well in its platform, right? So it seems like Netflix is now fully just doubling down on the social games, and then trying to see if they can implement their own IPs of like, Wednesday, or IPs like Stranger Things and stuff like that, like more trivia games regarding those, or maybe some games that have nothing to do with just fun social games that have that theming around them, right? So this is very, very interesting and opens a lot of doors for Netflix. But it's not just them releasing potentially new social games regarding their own IPs, as once again, they just want to leverage existing IPs as a whole to boost their gaming presence in the gaming industry. And part of that is taking old IP, as Red Dead Redemption recently announced that they will be coming for mobile games. It recently launched a mobile game version on Netflix. And this is happening because Red Dead Redemption recently put out a remaster of sorts into the industry, into the market. And that game, that Red Dead Redemption 1 remastered version, is coming for every single platform. As you can see here, it's coming for Netflix, for your phone, whether that be iOS or Android. It's coming for PS5, Xbox, the Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch 2. Now, for those consoles, for those people who already had Red Dead Redemption, don't worry, they're not going to make you pay for the game again, right? So what they have is a free upgrade for those that are in the Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch 2, for people who already bought Red Dead Redemption 1 on those platforms. The idea is that it's an upgrade that makes you have the remaster without having to pay it again, buying the game again. Now, the reason I say remastered is mostly because in reality, the new Red Dead Redemption remaster is just Red Dead Redemption, but they did work on optimizing a little bit of its performance to make it perform better in new modern consoles. But they didn't really do much regarding the graphics. You still have the graphics from the previous generation, from when the game got released, but now you'll have better performance. It'll run at faster rates. It'll have a 4K resolution, right? Like, it'll look better, but the graphics themselves are going to be exactly the same. So it's, you know, it's more of a update than anything, and or upgrade, not a remaster, which is why they call it here like a free upgrade. But they are selling it as its own thing. So on your computer or on any console or anything like that, you could end up buying the Red Dead Redemption without getting the free upgrade. So be careful when you do that. Make sure that you do in fact check that it is the console that you're looking for, right? That you are if you haven't bought it before, it's fine. I believe the new version that you're gonna have access to will already have it with the new upgrade. But if you have not bought it before, then just know that the new version, you should don't buy the new version. Just try to get the upgrade. There have been some reported issues with regarding, for example, Xbox and that free upgrade. They're having issues with that upgrade happening, or when it does happen, the game is having some bugs related to the new upgrade. So they are working to fix that, but just keep that in mind if you're going to do that upgrade on those consoles. But this is also highlighting a trend that we've been seeing for a while now, which is AAA companies going back to games that they had posted or like have been released for a while now, and that their communities have moved on, and trying to like relight the community that used to play that game to try to, well, hopefully get more money out of it, right? Like bringing back people to play Red Dead Redemption. Who knows? Maybe it's to get people to buy microtransactions that used to exist there, or more likely they might have a Red Dead Redemption coming up in the future, that be it a movie or be it a new game, and they want to get the fans and the public familiarized with the game if you haven't already heard of it. So it's a good way to get more publicity, more action into it. But it's, once again, a trend that we've been seeing with the industry, just kind of reviving old games. Because as we already know, and I've said a couple of times already in this, while doing this updates, the AAA industry is struggling. And in order for them to get better, they've been doing a lot, taking a lot of things out of their bag to try to make themselves profitable again. Because currently, AAA is at war with indie developers. So right now, we're seeing a kind of like civil war within the gaming industry between AAA games and indie games, where the public and us, the audience, have not been very happy with what one side has been doing. So we've been more aware about everything that's happening, and it's been affecting them, as we're not the only ones that are calling them out. Developers themselves are also starting to jump in and criticize how the gaming industry, how AAA games run their business. For example, we can take a look at Palworld's publishing boss, which recently stated that he hadn't really touched any AAA game title because of their overwhelmingly focusing their efforts on graphics and graphic quality and fidelity, instead about the game being fun and the gameplay being nice, right? So that's already an indie developer bashing at the AAA, stating you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on graphics and all this stuff, but their games are bad. Your games are not well polished, right? Like, it's in his article, he's basically stating that they focus so much on the look of a game that the core of the game is usually lacking, which is why he avoids them. And they're not the only one that has called them out, as right now we see that they do a lot of their focus has been in like the wrong things. And another example of this was with Ron Gilbert, which is the developer of Monkey Island and Return to Monkey Island. And he stated that he recently canceled his Zelda-inspired RPG game because he couldn't find a good publisher. He couldn't find a good publisher because all the publishers, and I quote, it's like they have formulas that they apply to games to try to figure out how much money they could make. And that's once again calling out that their focus has not been on making a good game or making a good product, but on cashing and milking whatever game the most they can. And in order for any indie developer to get published from those publishing companies, they have to cater their game to meet their requirements or their quota to ensure that they have the same type of money making schemes that they expect from your game. So in other words, developers have to change their games in order for the games to be more microtransactions or the game to be more live service or anything like that, instead of them being able to have the freedom of making the game how they want to make them and just making them game for fun. And self-publishing is something that is not so easy. I mean, you see a lot of indie developers self-publish in Steam and overall in itch.io and a lot of these different platforms, but do keep in mind that publishers have the resources for marketing. They have the resources to reach broader audiences, to reach TV ads, to reach more audiences out there that you might not have the budget to do on your own. That's why you get a publisher. But clearly they're starting to, their focus is becoming a little bit too much for indie developers to really agree with. And thus, more indie developers are starting to try to do their self-publishing, even if they suffer a little bit in the marketing side of things. And that's not the only thing. So they are working, and we're seeing that AAA games are, once again, focusing on the wrong things. They focus too much on graphics. They focus too much on making money. And not only do they focus too much on making money, they also are focusing on implementing AI and saving as much money as possible. Which is why they recently, the Indie Dev Checkered Inc., put together a 10,000 game asset pack, and they're selling it for only $10. And their whole motive is to combat AI. They're basically telling indie developers, hey, don't fall under these schemes, right? Don't use AI. Instead, look at this entire catalog that we have for you so that you can use to create any game you want. And obviously, there is art style and everything that you have to take into account. But with 10,000 game assets, you have more than enough to make any type of game that you like. And if you're already, using a already existing product with AI, why not use one more ethically sourced by paying just $10? Once again, 10,000 assets is more than enough for you to have a limitless amount of combinations and being able to create your game however you see fit, right? Because once again, as long as the game is fun, the assets can be taken from other places. Some people are starting to move away from having everything to look very, the graphics to be great and amazing. And they're starting to realize that the core game is what matters. So if you're making a game that you're getting into the industry and want to learn how to make a game and want to start, I think this is a great asset for you to have. Once again, indie developers fighting back against AAA developers by trying to ensure that AI is out of the gaming industry or prevent it as much as they can. And that being said, while they're fighting back, AAA games some companies are also trying to do their best to mitigate and fix their games and their issues that they find with their game. Amongst them, we have Helldivers 2. which with Helldivers 2, you can see that they recently went and changed and made an update to try to optimize their load and the how heavy the game is. So we've gotten used to, oh, sorry, I'm fixing something real quick. Yeah, it was cropped wrongly. Give me a second. There we go. So we've gotten used to AAA games being very heavy and having taking up a lot of your space in your memory in your console, right? Or in your computer. I mean, you have Call of Duty that's like 100-something gigs. You have Honkai Star Rail, which has 100-something gigs. And then you have Helldivers 2 right here, 154 gigs. And they're just getting larger and larger every single time. I think Call of Duty right now it's like 200, almost 500 gigs. It's crazy the amount of space that these AAA games have been taking up in recent years. And Helldivers 2 worked to try to alleviate some of that pain. So they managed to go down from 154 gigabytes in the recent updates to 23 gigabytes. That's downsizing it 85%. Now, how were they able to do it? What was taking up so much data, so much space that they removed? Well, they basically removed a lot of duplicating game assets or duplicating game data. Now, what is this duplicating game data? Well, the game has a bunch of repeated assets or repeated, data in folders to make it easier for people who run HDD drives to be able to run these games, right? So it just increased an HDD drive. Let me see if I can draw it here. All right. So the HDD drives are slower, and thus the way they access information is not so good. So when they try to access information, what ended up happening is that they would end up taking such a long time to load. They would take so long to load that people would not be happy. So in order to combat this, what they started doing is they started adding a bunch of repeated assets or repeated files in different segments of your game. So that way, when you were loading into a new space in the game, when you're loading a game again or any area of the game, it already had quick access to the files it needed and the data it needed right there. Otherwise, it would have to look through the folders to find the file and call it. And that process of looking, finding, and calling for HDD drives would take too long and would cause a long loading screens. So that's one of the reasons that we see a lot of duplicate data. Now, what the Helldivers 2 developers encountered was that although, yes, the HDD data is slower to load, right? When you're loading into a game, it does take a while longer. They said that it's roughly only like 2 seconds. Sorry, I wrote it wrong. It's roughly only like 2 seconds maximum increased loading time. So it's something that wouldn't really affect the audience playing the game. If this is how much it's increasing the loading time, like you wouldn't really notice 2 additional seconds. And that's because HDDs, although not as good as their SSD counterpart, have gotten better over time and have gotten more efficient. So although they still take longer to actually access the data that they need, they realize that if you just optimize your game to make it easier on the HDD to access that data, maybe you don't need to optimize it to such a degree where you need to inflate that the game size, right? So that's what they worked on, and they managed to once again lower it by a huge margin. And another thing to consider is how many people run HDDs nowadays. people know that SSD drives are the better option and have been slowly moving towards it. The only companies that really use HDD nowadays are like major companies for their for like servers, right? For high data and like servers and all that kind of stuff. That seems to be the reason they use HDD. Nowadays, your Xbox are starting to come out with SSDs. You have people on their computers are starting to get SSD drives. Like overall, we're seeing a shift to SSD because we know it's working better. So the amount of people that are getting affected by not optimizing HD is getting smaller. Meanwhile, the amount of people that are getting affected by continuing to optimize it is way larger because now we have games that are way too heavy, right? So hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight and shows that although some AAA developers are, have their views on the wrong things, some are actually working to make the space better and to actually make the experience better for their audiences and for their community. But even with that, they are still struggling. Because if we look back, once again, another bad news for AAA, Destiny Rising, which is a mobile game created for Destiny, recently went down by 80% of its peak value since September. So it's fallen a lot in audience. And once again, this is because they do use a lot of people. There are so many live service games that, people are checking other games. It's very hard to maintain the attention of your audience. Don't you also use HDDs for the data you store on the gen value of your data? No, I do not. I actually use SSD drives. I pay a little bit more and I buy some SSD drives. For example, hopefully it just seems like I just have like SD3 drives that I use for gems because it's easier for me to run the code and save it directly to the SSD drive and access the data like that without bogging or my laptop or bogging my computer with losing so much data to the gems. So once again, HDD drives always SSD drives are superior than HDD, and you should always strive to use it. Regardless, once again, Destiny Rising has been going down. It has been losing a lot of popularity, and it just shows how hard it is for games to maintain and keep the attention of their audiences on live service games. They think that anybody can make a live service game. That's not true. Anybody can make it. It's hard to retain people and continue playing. So it's not an industry that anybody can just jump into. And we're seeing that even with a good IP like Destiny, you will still struggle to keep people's attention. But there is still hope for AAA companies because there are some AAA games that people are still looking forward to. One of the example of that is GTA 6, which Xbox recently started increasing their manufacturing by, according to them, 4.8 million units annually in order to accommodate for the upcoming release of GTA 6. So their hopes are that once GTA 6 comes out, a lot of people are going to want to play it in consoles, and that might be the case depending on how demanding GTA 6 ends up being. If it's very demanding specs wise, a lot of people won't have the computers won't be able to run GTA 6, and in which case they will turn to consoles to try to play these games. So Xbox is currently trying to get ahead of the curve and start producing way more Xboxes to cater for those that need that help to be able to play the new GTA 6 that will be coming out next year. And who knows, maybe in that batch there's also a Xbox console GTA 6 version like they do all the time, like an exclusive that's GTA 6. It looks different and all that kind of stuff for the Xbox. Who knows, that might be another reason why they increased their amount of units that they're developing. But overall, they're anticipating a good amount of people are going to be buying consoles in order to be able to play GTA 6 when it releases. So there is some hope for AAA companies and for the AAA industries. But once again, they are still struggling, and we're seeing right now how developers from Eidos Montreal fired a dozen more employees out of their company. AAA companies are downsizing, and they continue to downsize because they cannot withstand the amount of the growth that they currently have, the size that they currently have. And this is affecting everybody as a whole, because this is developers that lose their jobs with AAA companies. And what will they do? Well, if they're still passionate about making games, they're going to probably go ahead and make their own company or develop their own games, and thus increasing the competition for those AAA companies, making it harder for them to succeed in the future. So another downside for AAA. Now, one thing that we have noticed in the last couple weeks, even though the public has been screaming, "Oh, AAA games, we don't like it. We don't like what you're doing. We're not going to buy your games," and all this kind of stuff. There's been a lot of really bad sentiment against AAA games. It's no longer just us complaining about AAA, as recently CEOs themselves have started to actually call out the trouble that they're in and the issues in AAA gaming space. As the most recent example being with the ex-Nexon CEO, who believes that the AAA gaming industry is dying. So from what we can see here, Mahoney, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, he came out and did an interview recently talking about how he sees the gaming industry as a whole shifting, and how he sees that that's gonna, where it's moving towards, right? And in that interview, he stated that the AAA industries are dying, and the reason they're dying is because of their reluctance and fear of taking risks. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing reboots, we've been seeing remakes, we've been seeing sequels to games that already exist. This is all stuff that people are getting tired of, but it is the safest option. And what we're seeing now is that the safest option might not work forever. And one of the things he also said, and I quote, "I think that AAA industries is structurally at its end, and without serious rewrite of the ways we go about making games, it's going to end in more disaster than it already has." So what is this structure that he's talking about? Well, the structure that currently exists in AAA industry is the structure of shareholders, stakeholders, and just people on a board, right? People are not making games. These higher up leaders and CEOs are not making games for their own profit and for them to just have a successful launch, right? These are so high that they have to guarantee that they're gonna give money to their stakeholders. And if a CEO comes in, spends 3 years on a game, spends a bunch of budget, like money on a game that they developed, and then the game flops, and then they take a risk and do it again, and the game flops again, those stakeholders are not going to be happy. The people on the board are going to want to the people on the board are going to want to remove him from the picture and potentially fire them. So CEOs, knowing that this is the case, are choosing to go the most safe route, so that way they can, keep their job, so that way they can make stakeholders happy. And since we've been seeing that the industry is no longer feeling okay or enjoying that kind of enjoying that path and moving away from that, then those CEOs are now failing, not just by taking the easy route, but even by risking it. And now they're in a lose-lose situation. And if they don't do something to restructure it, just like Mahoney said, then it'll just be the doom of the company, and the company will collapse in on itself. So that's one of the things that's happening. And we talked about how they're also implementing AI to try to, cut some budgets and remove some of the spending. Well, Mahoney also stated, even though he's optimistic about AI, he did state that he acknowledges AI has, and I quote, an unbelievable ability to create a lot of slop. But so does Photoshop. And what he's trying to state here is like, AI is a tool just like Photoshop, but if you don't use it properly, it has the ability to do a lot of slop, and people don't want slop. As he explains later, he says that audiences, and I quote, are rejecting slop and bad products and only demanding good products, which is what you would expect, right? The audience or people will never want bad product. And if you're giving them a bad product because you're using AI incorrectly and then giving them slop instead, people will notice, and people have been noticing, and people are not going to be happy. So all these factors are coming in for the AAA industries to feel a lot of heat, and they're just crumbling in on themselves because no matter what solution they can see right now, it just looks all bad for them. Hopefully they find a way that they can make themselves profitable without sacrificing quality. But as things stand right now, it seems that for us, indie games are winning. It seems like indie games are winning this war unless something happens and AAA games shift their mindset drastically. But this is good news. If you love indie games, then you know that there's a lot of potential for indie games out there. And if you're an indie developer, you know that there's a growing market for you for indie games. There's more competition, don't get me wrong, but there is a growing market for indie games that you could have a slice of that pie. Now, if you love AAA games, then that also might be bad news for you, because maybe some of your favorite games that were made by AAA companies might not see another sequel if you were expecting it. But who knows? Maybe people can start handing off their IPs to other companies, and maybe those other companies can revive those IPs that you love and do right to those IPs and give you another product that you really enjoy. Regardless, indie games right now and indie developers seem to be going on and up and are making a good comeback against AAA games. Once again, the pendulum is swinging. Now, in order to in order to celebrate that indie games are doing well, I wanted to talk about a specific game that has been getting a lot of attention recently. And so let's check the next game in our gaming highlight section. So in this gaming highlight section of the gaming marketplace, I want to point our attention towards a game called BattleBit Remastered. So if you don't know what BattleBit Remastered is a love child between Minecraft and Battlefield, right? So it's basically considered low poly Minecraft graphics, but with Battlefield gameplay. And recently, it's been getting a lot of attention because after its new update, it saw an overwhelming number of players suddenly jump into it and start playing the game, which is very interesting. This is also a really good first-person shooter for you if you don't care too much about graphics. The actual gameplay and gunplay is a lot of fun, and a lot of people have been enjoying it. And we can see this growth and this exponential growth here when you look at SteamDB. This is the player count for that game when the update was released. And although it did go down recently, we do see a slight increase here. Let me see if I can erase this real quick. You can see that the average is slowly increasing a little bit, and we're seeing that overall the player counts is increasing over time. So it's getting a lot of attention. It's bringing a lot of people to it, and overall it seems like it's a really nice game for you to jump into if you want something that feels like Battlefield 6. And if we look at your gem score, we can also see an increase. We can see that there was a huge increase after the update here for the game, and it's slowly been keeping that up, and we're seeing that slow growth that we saw with the SteamDB. We can see that, once again, slow growth. So today, it increased by 0.74% with a gem rating of 1.59 gems. And this slow growth is good, is really good for an indie game, and it's now currently in 750th, 15th place in the entire gaming market, top 1,000 in the gaming market, which is no small feat. There's a bunch of games. There are almost 90,000 games on Steam alone. So reaching top 1,000 is an incredible feat. So it's clearly doing a very good for itself. It currently has an average of 3.95 gems in its entire lifespan, and it has a peak of 10.88 gems. So overall, the game is seeing a good amount of movement. So, and with that new update, I highly recommend that if you're looking for something like Battlefield 6, but don't care about the graphics and have been looking for something that feels the same way that the OG Battlefield games were and what that feel that you got when you played those games, I highly recommend you check out BattleBit Remastered. And just so that you can see, even though I call it Minecraft, it's not that the graphics are bad at all. They're low poly, but as you can see, they are very clean. The HUD is clean, everything is clean. This game is really well done and really polished over the years. And with that new Operation Overhaul update that they just got, it looks even more clean. Like, there's never been a better time for you to jump into this game. It doesn't cost you that much. I forgot what price it was. I will check real quick. It costs you $15, so it's way cheaper than Battlefield, and you might really enjoy it and put even more time into this game. So once again, if this is your cup of tea, highly recommend you go ahead, check it out, and play it for yourself. And you'll be supporting an indie developer while you're doing it. But with that said, that concludes today's update of the gaming marketplace. So let me know, will you be playing a lot more Netflix games, or do you plan on maybe just leaving the game for the experts, right? But maybe you'll be playing with your family some more Netflix games. Do let me know if that's a feature that you actually intend to partake in and to use and maybe play with your family and friends. Additionally, also, let me know, what are your thoughts? Are you happy that indie games are winning? Or maybe you're more on the AAA game side. Maybe you want more AAA games and you're sad that there's a potential future where you see less and less of it. And will you be playing the BattleBit Remastered? Please let me know all your thoughts and everything you thought about the news and the games that are coming out and everything that's been happening, because once again, during these last 2 weeks, there was a good amount of movement. So let me know what you think, and how do you think the gaming industry is gonna look in the next couple of years. But with that said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. I will see you in the next gaming update. And that's the end of the recording. So yeah, the $25 digital Steam gift card gonna go brrr. Oh yeah, were they giving it? Oh, you mean like for the gift that you're gonna get? Yeah, dude. I haven't played this game myself, but I've seen it has a community that a lot of people love it. It seems like it's really loved by the community that does play it. So if it's also kind of is kind of your vibe, then I would recommend it. Now it's between this and Balatro. Balatro, but Balatro has had its time. It's had its course. Why not get Balatro on your phone? It's gonna be cheaper. Isn't like Balatro on your phone like $1? Hey, how you doing, Hollow? How you doing? I just finished the market update. I was just covering the news in the last 2 weeks of the gaming industry. But the TLDR is basically, and I'll just show you real quick. The TLDR, Netflix is getting into gaming and they're doing social games. That's what they're working on. I was covering the fight between AAA companies and indie games and what's their difference. And basically, a lot of people complaining about it, the industry complaining about their focus only on graphics, their how they only focus on making money and not making a good game. And I also covered a little bit about how Helldivers 2 lowered its size recently, and how that works, and how they were able to optimize the difference between like HDD and SDD, and why games are so large, especially AAA games, why they're so large. And yeah, and I also covered a couple of things that people are doing, some layoffs that are happening in the industry, and then somehow the public is not the only one saying that AAA games are suffering, and they might be going down and under, as even CEOs are starting to state that the AAA gaming industry are dying. So overall, indie games are winning as a whole. And I don't know if this is your cup of tea, Hollow, but if you like a Battlefield type game, but it's only $15, and it's like Minecraft graphics, like low poly graphics, BattleBit Remastered might be the game for you. That was a very big TLDR, basically everything that I've talked about in the last, hour? Yeah, I kept it in an hour. I kept it to my usual. But that was a lot of different news articles to cover. Oh, I can also go ahead and show you. So there is a recently Steam went and did a survey this year, or this month. They did a survey on, let's see if I can find it. Let's see. It's probably in forums, right? So basically, they did a survey to check what were the usual, I guess, the specs of the computers that run games, at least like run games in Steam. Like what are the average specs that we normally see from different people. And I'm gonna see if I can find that. I had the graphs open, but I guess I don't see it now. So I'm gonna have to probably, oh, there we go. Found it. Let me see if I can share screen here. Properties. Steam. All right. You guys should be able to see that. Let me just make sure it's not covering the entire screen. Okay, so here's another nice little bit of information that came out recently. I can't zoom in here. So I'll just zoom in here. Right, let me see if I can. Okay, zoom out a little bit so that I can actually fit all the graphs. Something like that will be fine. All right. So they're running this survey, and it seems like they've been running this survey since June of 2024, and we can see a couple of different things, a couple of different interesting facts. First off, no surprise, the GPU that's most commonly used within computers and gaming computers nowadays is still NVIDIA, but we do see that slowly, very slowly, AMD is starting to see a little bit of market share. It's starting to increase by very few margins, but it's starting to increase a little bit. But NVIDIA has been focusing a lot on developing their GPUs only for like AI and the servers, like AI models, like companies that do AI, and their servers and everything like that. So we don't know if NVIDIA is gonna end up stepping a little bit back on the consumer side, which is gaming PCs and all that. Considering that this is how they started and they have 73% of the market, but still, AMD not a bad, still the underdog, but AMD is also bringing out some good cards that do are good competition against Nvidia. So maybe we'll see more AMD in the future. I'm surprised that Intel. So Intel, I'm not surprised. I'm actually not surprised too much. I'm assuming that 7% that we're seeing here for Intel is probably like the blue. That 7% market is probably people who don't have gaming PCs overall. They just have like a work laptop or a laptop that one of their parents got them or something like that, and they play there, and they can't play like heavy games, but they can play some small indie games that come out, or stuff like Balatro that is not very heavy. So you can definitely see that kind of stuff, that difference there. So I'm assuming that 8% that we're seeing here for Intel is the people who don't have a gaming computer or don't have a gaming PC and just have whatever, Dell computer that they use for their work or for their daily use. So that's probably that 8% we see there. We do see that there is a lot of different DX systems. The one part that I found very interesting here, it's not like the different ones like Windows 10, Vista, or anything like that. What I found really interesting is here in the white, right? Here in the white, or like beige, but it's more white than beige. But here, you can see it's XP, and I'm not sure, but does this mean that it's a Windows XP? And if so, you're telling me that there is 0.94% of people. So there are people out there that are still playing on their Windows XP computer to play different games. Because if so, that's super interesting. I'm surprised that we're still seeing Windows XP being used even till this day. And Windows XP has been let me see. Windows XP has been basically out of support since when? Discontinued date. Windows XP has been discontinued since 2014. Since April of 2014. So it's been 11 years since they've done no more support on Windows XP. And frankly, Windows XP wasn't seen discontinued on XP. That's what I thought. But clearly there's basically a 1% people that are using Steam on the XP, according to their data. So very interesting to see that. An OS that hasn't existed for 11 years. So that's the fact. That's the value here that I find surprising. How there's still some people out there that have not upgraded the computer and they're still using Windows XP. And they play, and not only are they use Windows XP, they also play on Steam with it. Let's see. So here's another thing that I find interesting. We have seen that although Intel has majority of the market for processors in the US, we have seen that AMD slowly but surely has been getting more of the market. Before in June 24, it was seeing roughly Intel had 65% of the market, 66% of the market, and now Intel has 56%. So they've lost 10% of the market to AMD. So who knows? Maybe AMD will become the top PC processor developer in the near future, which I'm not surprised because Intel has been struggling as of late. Numbers of CPUs per computer. This is pretty even all across the board. I'm not surprised that this is pretty even all across the board. Once again, a lot of computers, depending on how much money you have to build your gaming PC, you're gonna have different CPUs amounts. and the other, which is what was the other, 27%, which is other CPUs. That's people who have even more CPUs than 8, which is also, you know, viable. Some people have some monster computers, right, that they just keep increasing their performance. So I'm not surprised by that at all. But it's pretty even all throughout, which I'm not. It's honestly pretty expected. It's interesting here what Mac hardware. This is only Mac, so people who are using Mac here, it seems like the most used is, what is this one? 21%. That's a really bad font for this, but 21% is by MacBook Pro. People who play on the Mac, they play Steam on the MacBook Pro, it seems. And whoever's not using the MacBook Pro is using the MacBook Air. And then VR headset. I don't use a VR, but it seems like the most popular VR headset right now is the Meta Quest 3, and then shortly behind that is the Oculus Quest 2, which I'm not surprised. Those are like the main competitors, I would say, between themselves. And it's just the newer models as well. And we might see Valve's a VR headset here in the future. Who knows? But yeah. So very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff that we've been seeing from this survey. It's interesting to see just how what people normally use to play video games on Steam. So that's some additional information for you guys overall. Let me lower this. There you are. But yeah. And well, that's pretty much it for today. I was gonna keep it short. I don't think I'm gonna play anything today. I wanted to I covered over the Steam a little bit. I'm still editing a couple of videos, so I'm a little bit delayed on editing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just came back, so I just wanted to make sure that even though I took a break, that I come back and give you guys the news recap. I do want to give you guys a heads up that oh, wrong thing. I do want to give you guys a heads up that I will not be live. I won't be giving the update for next Thursday 11th, because I have family coming over, so I won't be able to go live then. I probably should be good for the 18th. I should be good for the 18th, but then obviously you're not going to see me for Christmas, and you're not going to see me in New Year's. And unfortunately, that 11th is the Game Awards. I'll literally be driving during that time, so I won't be able to see the Game Awards with you guys. But maybe I can do a recap at some point of like things, my thoughts on what I saw from the Game Awards, or maybe do shorts. We'll see. I wish I could have covered it live, but we'll have to wait. Or I could hold off, not watch it, avoid spoilers, which is very hard. Avoid spoilers and then maybe do it the day after, but I don't think so. I think we'll just have to. Well, there will be more Game Awards in the future, and you'll see my reaction to those when they come out. So yeah, so no Game Awards for that. And if remember this Saturday is the Trade Anything Day on GameStop. So I mean, if you want to try it out, I'm gonna check if somebody traded anything random or anything crazy. But just know that event is happening this Saturday. So if there's something you want to trade in, make sure to go this Saturday to your local GameStop. Maybe work around like 12. Yeah, I'll see, because once again, since family will be in town during that weekend, that's why I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it. And then it'll be too long of a time before I can actually go live again, for me to like not see or anything regarding the Game Awards or like react to it. So I'll give you my 2 cents maybe in another stream, or maybe I'll do like a short. Other than that, unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna be able to cover the actual Game Awards. So there's that heads up. You're in the Discord. You'll hear you'll get my reaction through the Discord. So if you are not in the Discord, you want to see my reaction sort of live, I'll be reacting to it while probably through text as I watch it. Join the Discord. join the Discord, and there you'll be able to hear my reaction and maybe in my tea takes. I'll put it in there, and maybe I might even post on Twitter. Who knows? But yeah, I have nothing else planned for today, so I'm just gonna call it here. It's a nice short little stream, 1 hour ish stream. So we'll just call it here, and that'll be it. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the news recap for today, and I will see you sometime next week. I plan on, I might not be doing the newscast, but I do plan on maybe coming online to play some games or something like that. So I'll see you in the next stream. See you then. Thank you so much for tuning in. See ya.